In this tutorial we're going to be creating a username checker that checks the username is available as it's being typed into a form field. So as you can see here, I've got a form field here with username and the field that we're going to type a username into. Then what we've got here is a status message which is going to tell us to either choose a username. If the username is still too short, so we're going to have some checks on that to check if it's too short or not. And then it's going to tell us if the username is available or unavailable. Now what I've done is I've set up a database just called my database. I've got a table called users, which you would usually find this sort of content inside a users table. I've got the username that's already registered, which is PHP Academy, a password and some other information. Now the only field that we're going to be focusing on in this tutorial is the username field, because we're going to automatically match up what's typed in here to this value here, or the value in however many rows you have in your database, and we're going to match this up and tell the user if the username is available or not. So the first thing I'm going to do is come over here and start typing a username. Now say if I wanted to type a 3-character username, that's PHP. You can see it's told me that it's too short. Now in this example the minimum amount is 3, so you have to have more than 3 characters in your username for it to be accepted. So if I now type Alex, we've been given a message saying available. This is because the username Alex doesn't exist in our database at the moment. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in PHP Academy. You can see it's already told me that it's available, but as we get to the point where we type PHP Academy, it tells us that the username is not available because it already exists inside this table. Okay, so that's basically how it works, and we can start writing the code now. Okay, so just a quick note before we start typing anything out. This tutorial is being created for example purposes only, so to incorporate this into your own actual form where you're typing out all data, obviously this is only taking into account the username, you'll obviously have to make some changes. Now what we're using is index.php and check.php. Index.php is going to be our interface, so the form, the username field, everything like that. And then check.php is going to be called by jQuery, and it's going to automatically check, return the data, and then display it back in index.php. So the first thing we want to do is set up our HTML tags and then our head tags. Head is where we're going to include the jQuery file, and also the body tags, which we're going to include all of our body information in, so the form itself. So the first thing we want to do is include jQuery. Now you can download jQuery from jQuery.com, and all you need to do is put the file in the same folder that you're working with. This will just allow us to call the check.php without refreshing the page. So type equals text/JavaScript, and what we're going to do here is we're going to say the source is jQuery.js. That's just how I've saved my jQuery file. And then we're going to end the script there. So we don't need anything in between here. This is just including this script so we can use it in the rest of our page. So now we also need to set up another script area for us to enter the rest of our code that we're going to be using, our JavaScript code, and we're going to be calling jQuery in this. Because we've already included it, we can call it straight in here as well. Okay, so to set up our form, I'm just basically going to set up a form with the name of form, so we can keep it nice and simple. Okay, we can end our form there. Okay, so inside here we want to put username label, and then we're going to break down, and we're going to say input type equals text, because we're entering text data. Let's just go back to our browser and check that out for now. Okay, so we can see we've got username and then where we're going to type our information in. So obviously nothing works at the moment. We're going to give this an ID, and I'm going to call this username underscore input, and then I'm going to give this a name, so I'm going to say username. The reason I'm calling this username input is just to distinguish between this, the ID of this, and the name of this. And then what we're going to do is we're going to enclose in fact what we're going to do is, come down here and we're going to create a new div, and this is going to have the ID of feedback, so we can address this and then put some feedback inside there. Now nothing needs to go in here right now, because what we're going to do is we're going to use jQuery to put data into this feedback, and that data is going to come from check.php. So as you can see at the moment, if I leave this in here at the moment, you can see that we actually get that data out inside that div. Now the first thing that I'm going to do is put this further up, so it's just underneath the form field, and to do that we're going to use some CSS. So we're going to type style equals style type equals text / CSS. I'm going to end that style tag, and inside we're going to use hash and then feedback. This hash identifies this as a div, so we're formatting this div, and all I'm going to do is say line hyphen height and then 0px. So basically now when we refresh this, this has gone further up. So that's just a bit of styling just to make everything look a bit nicer. So we've styled this div here. We can take out this text, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up and I'm going to start writing my jQuery. Now what we first of all need to do is create a sort of like a document area where we're going to call, when the document is ready, we're going to start a function. So as soon as the document is ready, we're typing $ and then document in brackets, and then we're going to type ready, and then again in brackets we're going to type function and then 2 brackets there, and then what we're going to do is we're going to open up a curly bracket. We're going to come down and end that curly bracket, so we've still got this, and this here is where this started, and then we're using a line terminator, which is a semicolon, to end that. So basically what we've got here, let's align this up so we can see it better, is we're saying when the document is ready, start a function, and then we're going to everything in here is going to be when the document is actually ready. So the first thing we need to do is we need to load check.php up here into the document, or into the feedback div rather, down here. And we're going to do this by $, and then in brackets we're going to have hash feedback, and remember hash to identify it's a div, and we're going to say .load, and then in brackets we're going to say check.php, and then we're going to say .show to make sure this is shown to the user. We don't need this because we haven't originally hidden the div, but we're just using show. I'm going to show you just to show you a function really. So if this is successful, then the contents of check.php up here, which is nothing at the moment, should be put directly into the feedback div. So we'll give that a go. We'll just enter some dummy data into here. Oh, dummy data. And then we'll open up our browser. I'm going to refresh here, and you can see that it says dummy data. Now nowhere on our index.php do we have dummy data. So basically what we've essentially done is included the contents of check.php into our div using jQuery. And the reason this is useful is we can, on the fly, we can check for this username and put the results from check.php, which is going to check our username, straight back into the feedback div without refreshing. So I'm going to take away this. And what we're going to do now is we're using the keyUp method, and this is going to allow us to say when a key is pressed or when a key comes up. So it's pressed, and then when it comes up we're going to create a new function. And to do this we're going to use $ again, and this time we're saying hash username underscore input. Now remember what we did here is what we wrote here. So we've identified this as username underscore input, and that is the input field itself. So this is the user input field itself, and what we can do is we can then say what we want to do with this method. So we're using key up and then function, again like we did up here. We're going to open up a curly bracket, come down and close it, and then pop a line terminator on here. So basically when we have a key up event inside here, we're going to execute, or rather put forward some results. So for now, what I'm going to do for testing purposes is I'm going to say $feedback dot append, and then we're just going to choose something to append with. So I'm going to choose the character A, and then remember to terminate that with a line terminator. So let me just run through this. We've run the document is ready. We've loaded check.php into the feedback div. Then what we're doing is we're checking the username input, which is here, which is this input type. And when a key up happens, we're going to run a function, which is sort of like empty at the moment, and we're going to append the character A to the feedback div. So let's check this. Nothing's displayed at the moment because there's nothing inside our check.php file, but like I said before, for testing purposes, when we type something, whatever it may be, and I'm even pressing backspace and it's appending an A, so we can type absolutely anything, and you can see that as we do this, we're appending an A onto this, or rather into this feedback div. So obviously this function is useless to us, we don't need this, but what we are going to do is we're going to run a post, and we're going to post data to check.php to allow us to check and then feed us back the results. And like you've seen here, we've appended A's in here. Instead of appending A's, we're going to feed back the results from our check.php file. So to do this, we're going to say $.post, and this is going to allow us to post data to a specific file contained within here. And obviously this is going to be check.php because we're using PHP code inside that to check our username. And then we're going to have a comma, remember, inside the rounded brackets, and then we're going to have an opening closing curly brackets, and we're going to put forward our post data. So I'm going to call this username. Now this is the method, this is the variable that we're going to be passing to check.php, and now after the colon we need the value of this. And if we come back down again, remember we've called our form, so we're going to use form value of username. So basically to do this, we just write form.username.value, and that's going to grab the value of the text field called username inside the form called form. So it's pretty simple. The next thing we want to do is after the curly bracket we need another comma, and we're going to come down and we're going to type function, and this time inside the rounded brackets we're going to type result, and this is going to put forward the result that comes from check.php. Okay, so after this we need more curly brackets, and then we're going to end that there. So this in itself is the post function within jQuery, and what we're doing now is we need to echo out the results from feedback, or rather put into the div the results from feedback. So hash feedback, and then it's .html. Now what this does is it just basically changes the whole structure of the div and puts in the code we want. So this is going to be result. Remember up here this is what has been returned, and then we're saying .show. So what can we do with this now? How can we test this? Now the best way to think about this is we've put forward the username into check.php, and we're going to grab the username inside check.php and later perform some checks on it. But first what I want to do is I want to display what the user has exactly typed as they're typing it. So because we're grabbing the result from check.php and we're like putting it out into the feedback div, we can simply open up some PHP tags, and the way this username variable here works is exactly the same as you would use the post inside PHP. So all we need to do is we need to say username equals $_post username, and this value here, this variable name here, username, is what matches this here. So regardless of what I've called this here, this is what we're looking at, and this is how we're putting it forward to this file. So what I can simply do here is in front of username I can echo it out. So what's going to happen is, as we have a key up, we're going to run this function here, and we're going to post what we've typed into the form to check.php using this variable, and then the result of what comes out from check.php, i.e. we've echoed out what the user has typed in, is going to be displayed in feedback using the HTML, and then we're obviously using this HTML part here to put in the result, which is here. So it seems complicated, but if you have a look at it, you'll eventually understand how all this works together. So let's give this a try. We'll refresh, and as I start typing, you can see that everything is being echoed out. Rather, that's my surname. So everything that we type in and everything that we backspace, it's just mimicking it at the moment. Okay, so you can see eventually what we're going to do is we're going to, inside our check.php file, we're going to check this against some values in the database, and as it's being typed, as each character is being typed, it can perform that check. So inside check.php, we'll get rid of this because we don't want to echo this out to the user at the moment. The first thing that we want to do is connect to our database. Now if we look up here, I've got my database called my database, and I've got a table called users, and then inside this table called users I've got this value here with PHP Academy as the username. So as I'm running through this, you can incorporate this into your own database that might already exist. So obviously your database is going to look a lot different from mine. This is just example data in here. There's no login or register function included in this. This is just a database I've created for the tutorial purposes. So obviously, like I said before, the username field is the only one that we're going to be dealing with. So I've just put this in to make it look a bit more realistic. So if we come back to our check.php, we're going to connect to our database. So it's localhost root, and I don't have a password on this. And then we're going to select the database. So the database is called my database, which is shown here. And then what we need to do is grab the username, so that's the next thing we need to do. And we need to incorporate some security in this to ensure, well, help prevent against MySQL injection, or SQL injection rather. So we're going to use MySQL real escape string, and that's included inside some curly brackets, the posted username. So everything works. Well, let's just test that. Yeah, nothing's happening, which it shouldn't do because we haven't echoed anything out. Now the next thing that we need to do is we need to run the SQL query to select our username from the database, and we need to check if it actually exists. So what we're doing now is I'm going to create a variable called check, and this is MySQL query. And then the query goes something like this. It's select username from users. So we're selecting the username field from the table users, like I've got just here. This is the table and this is the field name. And then we're saying where username equals username. So this is a unique SQL query. So we're only selecting the record whether username equals username, which is unique in itself anyway, because we're not letting users register the username if it already exists. So we've performed this query. Now what we need to do is find out the amount of rows that have been returned. So I'm going to say check num rows equals MySQL num rows. This is going to tell us how many rows have been returned from this query, and it's either in this case going to be 1 or 0, because as we type it's either going to match PHP Academy or it's not going to match PHP Academy. It may be, the username may be Alex, in which case we're going to return a 0 rows because the username doesn't exist, or if we do type PHP Academy, we're going to return 1 row because we've selected this row where the username equals PHP Academy. And this is check. So we're taking this here, putting it into here, and getting the number of rows. Now what we can do is echo out the number of rows just for testing purposes as we go along. So let's refresh this page. Okay, so it says 0 at the moment. I'm going to type Alex. Still 0. So presumably there's been no rows returned, which means this username is available. Now if I go ahead and type PHP Academy, this changes to 1. So we've returned 1 row. So now you can see how easy it's going to be for us to use an if statement to check if the number of rows is 1, then we can echo out to the user, sorry, this username is not available. If we have a return value of 0, we're going to say this username is available because no rows have been returned with that username. So let's get rid of echo. Now before we do the checking of whether the username is available or not, what we want to do is we want to check if the username has been typed in, and if the username is of a high enough character amount for us to proceed. So you can add your own checks in here as you like, but for now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say if username equals null. So if it doesn't equal anything really, then we're going to echo out choose a username. So we can test this right now. Let's refresh. It says choose a username. As soon as I start typing something, that disappears. So you can see that it's automatically checking that without refreshing it. And then we're going to say else if strlen, which is a function within PHP, and it stands for string length, and we're going to check the string length of username, and we're going to say if this is smaller than 3, echo too short. We can just say too short without an exclamation mark. So we can check this now. We can run this code, press F5 to refresh. ALE, oh no, okay, so equal to 3. So if it's smaller than or equal to 3, our minimum is 3. So let's refresh and try that again. So it's ALE, that's too short. As soon as I type X in, nothing happens, which means that we're not returning the too short error message. Let's go back again. Okay, so now what we're going to do is I'm going to say else. I'm going to open up a block just to make this simpler to, a bit easier to read. And we're going to say if check num rows equals 0. Now remember, 0 is returned if the username is available, because we haven't returned any rows where this condition is met here. So we're going to type echo available. Then else if check num rows equals 1, then we can echo out not available. Okay, so that's pretty much it for inside here. Let's go back to our page and refresh. Okay, so I'm going to type in, well, it's given us the message choose a username first of all. I'm going to start typing, saying it's too short, and then as we press X it says available. The username Alex is available. So I can type anything in and it will say available. Now if we were to start typing PHP Academy, so obviously this is available as it stands, but as soon as we get to PHP Academy it says not available. Okay, so that's how you would automatically check whether a username is available without refreshing the page using jQuery. So if you enjoyed this tutorial and you haven't already subscribed to my channel, please do, it would be a great help. And I hope this was a great help to some of you. So thank you very much. See you in another tutorial.